Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. This is Sean Watson from Ingram Micro. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to get a few more attendees, just a couple of extra stragglers along the line, and then we'll kick it off and we'll get into the introductions. Probably just allow it till about probably 2 past 11, I'd say. If you're just joining, you probably can't hear anything yet. We're just giving it a couple of minutes for a few extra attendees. I guess we'll kick it off. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending our Ingram Micro Cloud and Acronis Introduction to Cyber Protect Cloud. What we'd like to do today is introduce the team that are with Acronis, and then also a couple of the guys from Ingram, including myself, and then we'll hand over to the guys. But to introduce the team, we've got from Acronis, we've got, if we can flick to the next slide, please, David. Thank you. Sorry, guys. From the team, we've got Andrew, so he's looking after the pre-sales solution engineering, and he will be going through today a little bit of the portal run through for us, so we can have a look at the intricacies of the Acronis Cloud Cyber Protect. David Clark, head of channels and the enterprise for ANZ, will be running through the sales and the solution and what we need to understand about Acronis. Myself, I'm the business development manager from Ingram. We look after a vast range of products in the value SaaS team, and Acronis is one of those that we're very passionate about. And then we've got Dan Mattias, who's going to look after the marketplace and show you how to order. So Dan and I are from the Ingram team, and then we've got Andrew and David from the Acronis team. From there, they're going to drill down further into the product itself. So I'll hand over to David in a second to go through Acronis Cyber Protect, which is your full backup and recovery, anti-malware and antivirus, and full security management from the single portal. He'll drill down to the intricacies of that. And then what we'll have is a little bit of a questionnaire at the end of it, where I'll jump back on and I'll ask some of the questions. But if we could leave the questions in the questions area or in the chat section of your panel, and then we'll go through those at the end. But I might hand over to David Clark now to go through a bit of the presentation of the Acronis Cyber Protect. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Sean. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We certainly appreciate everyone attending to hear about this exciting launch for Acronis Cyber Protect. So this webinar is specific for our partner ecosystem. We recognise that you'll likely have questions about the release of this solution. So we're planning to give you a heads up on the solution in order to help answer those questions, and to also help answer any questions you may have from your end user community. So our goal today is to provide an overview of Acronis Cyber Protect. It's quite feature oriented. It provides access to some powerful tools. And for those new to Acronis, Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud is part of Acronis Cyber Cloud, which incorporates backup, disaster recovery, file sync and share solution, notary cloud solution. And last year, Acronis opened every conversation with partners with a discussion of the overall term SAPIS, and we're going to cover that in a little bit. So who is Acronis? Acronis is a Swiss Singaporean-based leader in cyber protection, founded in Singapore in 2003, with our corporate headquarters based in Schaffhausen in Switzerland. They were established in 2008. Acronis is a global company with over 1,500 employees in 33 locations worldwide. In 2020, our goal is to grow to over 300 million in annual revenues, which is a 50% year-on-year growth target. And we expect our cloud business to be growing at more than 100% year-on-year growth. Impressively, for those of you who might not be aware, every company in the Fortune 1000 list is an Acronis customer. And since the company was founded, we've transacted over 50,000 partners. We have over 500,000 corporate customers and 5.5 million prosumers and home businesses as users of our products. Interestingly, the products are available in 150 different countries, localized to 40 different languages. So Acronis coined this terminology, SAPIS, and this, in essence, you'll see aligns to a lot of our behaviors in how we've built our product and why we've taken the approach of a balancing force of what we ultimately end up with is cyber protection. So it's a combination of these 5 vectors that give us an overall cybersecurity posture. And so we'll just work through a couple of these right now to explain why. So safety, so that we have a reliable copy of data that we can recover from accessibility perspective. So ensuring the ability to access the data is available anywhere at any time. The privacy, making sure that we've got complete control over the visibility and access to the copy of the data, so who can access it. The authenticity of data. So how do we have an immutable proof that the copy of a piece of data is an exact replica of the original data and hasn't been tampered with. And security, so with the incorporation of protection from cyber threats, which is what we're talking about today with the release of Cyber Protect. So this provides complete protection, but we actually require the balancing force of all of these 5 vectors. And we do delve deeper into this overall concept, which also aligns around the NIST framework, and I'll explain that. We achieve this through, I guess, 5 key things that you see on the screen there, through ease of use, because with Acronis, our solution, all our protection scenarios are integrated within one solution, through low total cost of ownership. And we mean that because it's an integrated solution, it's less expensive in deployment and management of perhaps multiple point solutions, through integration, as you know, all of the services can talk to each other, because security is also integrated into the overall solution, enabling control, covering access and location of the data, meaning that you can control where the data lives, where it resides, and who has access to it. And then reliability actually comes from, all of these 5 vectors working together in a single solution. So what do we see occurring in the market, and why have we built, and why have Acronis launched Cyber Protect to market? So we know the edge devices are under attack. It used to be that data centers held all the data, but now with edge computing, remote workforces, given COVID and things to that effect, it's a lot of information is now residing more so on the endpoint, and it's an enormous amount of information. So there's a high dependency on these systems that live outside the data center and perhaps not syncing with corporate networks. So there's attacks happening out on the edge at these endpoints. You can see right here that you have your remote offices, remote workers, cloud servers, hosted servers, desktops, mobile devices, and a lot of this device data is certainly not living in the data center anymore now. And with that, there's an increase in endpoint attacks. So organizations are particularly ineffective at surfacing these threats because their endpoint security solutions are not effective at detecting advanced attacks. Zero-day attacks continue to increase in frequency and are expected to more than double in the coming year. These attacks are also inflicting more bottom-line business damage. The average cost per endpoint breach increased up to $9 million in a large organisation, which is up from $2 million in, up from $7 million, sorry, in 2018. And it's important to note too that what we see is the average time to patch in an organisation is 102 days. So organisations are taking a lot longer to roll out and test patches. Traditional antivirus misses about 57% of attacks. So AV in a traditional sense is not really that effective, but everyone knows we still need to have it. And data volumes are growing 33 times faster than we can employ people. So and if you've had a customer for more than 5 years, then you've likely had to replace a hard drive for them, because on average we see drives fail in that sort of duration. So everyone is getting hit with ransomware somewhere, and so what's the result of this? What's the impact? What's the impact to business? Well, you have system downtime, you have reputation damage, you've got to the company, you've got theft of the data, damage to the infrastructure, possible regulatory and possible legal action to deal with, and overall loss of productivity and resulting revenue loss due to the cost of having to deal with that type of incident. So we know that AV, traditional antivirus, does not protect data, right? Because there's no recovery in antivirus. So and traditional antivirus does not help with zero-day type attacks. So looking at the backup portion, backups are vulnerable to attacks. There are variants of malware that are out there that are specifically targeting the backups. They attempt to take over the backup system, then they go after the rest of the non-restorable machines, and there's no protection or forensic capabilities that in that. So if the backup has malware, then it's likely in the archives, and you're certainly going to be restoring from a malware-infected backup. So you see there's complexity because as you have more tools in your arsenal, a lot of these tools require different agents, and so then you start having issues with conflicting agents. There are staffing challenges. There are back-end costs outside of just the costs of the different products that you're using. You have different software to manage. There's vendor certifications, there's vendor management, and then there's licensing. And a lot of the time, these standalone tools or point solutions can have integration nightmares because there's no unified, coordinated way to see, what's in each of the systems. So when you bring all these tools together, it creates a lot of complexity. It becomes a little bit more expensive, and the system's perhaps not secure because they're not talking to each other. And what we know is important to understand if we look at this through the lens of the service provider is that, when you're dealing with multiple point solutions and complexity associated with that, you're possibly increasing the workload on your technicians. There's increased potential downtime. There's manual processes. There's increased incidents due to perhaps not having, sufficient tools that are not working together. And then things can kind of go into crisis mode when you are dealing with multiple incidents. And it's really not an ideal situation for service providers to find themselves in. So what Acronis has brought to market is a single solution that incorporates backup, disaster recovery. Excuse me. It has the artificial intelligence-based protection. It's got remote desktop systems. It has all the security tools all in the one place. So in this solution, again, we have backup and disaster recovery right now, if you're familiar with the product. But what you're going to have now is a whole lot more features. And for example, something we call continuous data protection. So right here, we have a full stack of artificial intelligence and machine learning based protection against malware, for ransomware and crypto mining. And our goal is to have one product with the automation built into the back end, which gives you a single tool to enable end-to-end cyber protection. So thinking back, around that SAPIS term. And, for those customers already using Acronis Cyber Backup if you're already using the platform. It's just, you can get started very, very easily. It's simply just a matter of updating the agent to the Cyber Protect agent. So cyber protection, again, just a little bit about our concept of why we've built, included certain features in the product. Will actually help us align to deliver against this framework. So again, coming down from the SAPS terminology, now we start to delve a bit deeper into prevention, detection, response, recovery, and forensics. So cyber protection and data security cover the whole life cycle of the customer. And these are the 5 steps that enable us to respond to those for our customers. So there's prevention, as I said. So, if your customers don't get infected in the first place, if you didn't have a problem, then, it really wouldn't be an issue. So we'll touch on smart protection plans and how it helps deliver to that capability. Detecting and responding, right? Because so responding to detections is really important, because if your customer's attacked, then how are we going to respond to that? And so ensuring that we're able to recover and say, is there remediation from a form of backup, and is that free from malicious malware? And do we have the ability to patch it to ensure any holes in the backup are closed prior to restore? And then you have forensics in here, right? So there's, in the event there's an investigation or audits are required, then there's information in the backups to ensure that the data that investigators might be requesting is able to be provided. And so you see right here that we have 300 plus issued and filed patents, and we're adding roughly 50 annually. And these are the ones that more recently have been filed specifically just for the Cyber Protect product. So from our perspective right now, being the only single agent solution that combines data protection, backup, disaster recovery, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, it's a huge plus overall, along with the integration and automation that is within the back end. So let's take some of the service provider challenges and concerns that you may have out there, and we're going to try and turn those into some value here. So there's 3 primary pillars of value that we're looking at. So up front, you have the upgraded security. So you really want to do as little work as possible. So proactive prevention of downtime. And if you're able to proactively avoid downtime, that's going to help us meet our SLEs, or possibly go out and provide new SLAs for our customers. There's a feature I mentioned called continuous data protection. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail, but that's going to let us have real-time protection on our clients' most important files. We've got smart protection, which helps auto-adjust customer protection plans, and it ensures complete data protection for us, and that we have less planned downtime and maintenance, because it's going to manage those for us. We can automate or manually do that. It helps simplify cost controls. Is another aspect that we have here, because how much is it going to cost? What is the pricing model? Again, we recognise there are other costs, such as staffing and headcount, that need to be factored in here. So we all know that onboarding is a very expensive item. So speeding that up and simplifying the onboarding process of new customers and devices, so being able to find devices quickly and deploy to them. If you can make that more efficient, it really helps create operational efficiency. So it's going to be able to help you serve more customers with less staff. So when you're growing, it means you won't necessarily have to hire as many people as you need to scale. And then there's centralized customer patching. So no additional cost. It's part of the Cyber Protect product. And you're again avoiding expenses on multiple backend systems. And then there's less training for engineers, because it's all within the one tool, very, very simple to use. And then finally, you've got the new revenue streams. That's the other pillar here on the right. You need to simplify customer retention as service providers. So, there's always a need to justify value. Look what we've done for you, Mr. Customer. So by demonstrating our value of what you've done and what you've been able to protect the customer from, it's going to help us build customer confidence, customer satisfaction, and of course that's going to result in a much easier retention of that customer. If we're able to go back and have meaningful conversations with the customers, telling them what we've done for them. And if you have customers out there with stricter compliance requirements, there are some features in here that we'll go over that might be able to help you differentiate yourself. And if you have existing customers, then this could be an easy upsell. And then, we all want to sell more managed security services without necessarily having to go and hunt for more expertise. So this is more than just a bundle, right? It's not just simply throwing a bunch of tools all into one UI. There's new workflows, there's new use cases. It's not just the same interface that you may be familiar with, but it's how all of these services are integrated and how they are all sharing information on your customer's system. So there are some key things here that I want to focus on that help take a lot of the complexity out. So you're going to have, one licensing scheme to work with. You're going to have one user interface. It's going to be one management console. So this is going to be taking and eliminating complexity, keeping costs down, improving your uptime, the shared information, as I mentioned. So you'll have backup, then you have antivirus, you'll have the AI technology communicating on things, as well as the patching. And it's all one piece of shared information on the customer system. You can see the picture on the right here that with the one license, the one agent, the one UI, it's a matter of selecting, what you want to be a part of that particular protection plan. And then there's many actually additional options underneath that. So with that one protection plan, you can have the shared information about what's being performed, what's being performed on that endpoint. For example, you might be asking yourself such things as, when did I run a vulnerability scan on that machine? What am I doing with the infected files detected as viruses? And when was I backing up? What time was that backing up? So you can actually quite easily visually see this all in one protection plan without having to go, again, having to go into multiple products, multiple UIs, log into multiple tools. So, imagine if you're doing that, you've got multiple license schemes, vendors to deal with, contracts. It really affects everyone from the guys on the tools all the way to the owners. So, part of this for the service providers is also, figuring out, how we make this into a business proposition that's unique to us. Especially now with the situations occurring globally, there's a lot of concern, a lot of small business, a lot of those in the hospitality industry really struggling. There's business, going out of business, and there's certainly a focus on how we as service providers can offer a more diversified portfolio of services that's perhaps going to help us better insulate ourselves, in times like these, which are seem to be changing daily. So as I said, there's a combination of backup, anti-malware, and security features as part of this solution. It's we'll cover a couple of these scenarios to give you some of the core ones. We're going to cover a bit about the continuous data protection, which I mentioned, and what that's going to do is, in between the backups, it's going to save your clients information in real time. We've got smart protection plans where we can auto adjust scans, we can run backups and instigate patching based on CPOC, and that stands for the Cyber Protection Operations Center that Acronis has. I'll touch on that a little bit further. You'll be able to scan backups for malware in the cloud, also on local storage. So this is going to allow you to offload some of those tasks of running full anti-malware scans on the backups instead of the endpoints and servers themselves. Then we have the safe endpoint recovery. So you'll be able to scan the backup for malware before recovery. And then we have fail-safe patching right here. So performing an automated image-based backup before applying patches to ensure quick recovery should we run into any issues. And we also have something called the data protection map. And this is about file level backups. It's given us classification and reporting, and essentially visually displaying the data, telling us if everything we were meant to back up was backed up. So it's a very, very quick way to reference that. And forensics investigation data, sometimes because we're going to need that's there, we'll go into that. And we have the whitelists both at global and local level. And it's not just these features, but it's how all of these things are going to be working together. So continuous data protection. So let's just say we're performing a backup once a day, and during the day we've got our staff are working or our customer staff are working on their data. What's to prevent these people from losing, days worth of work if, something fails midway through the day in between a backup. And, we perhaps use a, CEO analogy here, but I think, it's important that no matter what the person is paid, to lose a whole day of work is going to be pretty infuriating. So one of the things you can do with continuous data protection is you can get near to close to a zero recovery point. A lot of our service providers have been asking for this, and now we have it, which is great. It allows us to also, we can define the critical applications on every user's endpoint. So on every device the users are working with, the agent that is deployed to that endpoint, what it's doing is it's monitoring any changes into those applications. So, in case of a malware infection or something happens to the system, you can restore the data from the last backup and apply these latest collected changes so that they don't lose any data. And it's important because, if we lose customer data in between the backups, then pretty much it's gone. Now we have safe recovery. So we need to keep infections from reoccurring. So standalone tools can't really do this because it works for full systems backups. So you can take the operating system and your applications in a backup, and it can have vulnerabilities, particularly if it hasn't been patched. As we heard, it averages 102 days to patch. So patching these machines and applying these definitions allows you to restore your machines with the latest patches, which is going to help dramatically reduce the chances of reoccurring infections. So this does save time, effort, as well as the data, and it allows you to recover vulnerable images quickly. So you can perform scans of the backups, both malware and vulnerability scans, to ensure they're malware free. This is going to allow us to perform an aggressive scan of the backup when it's not on the client endpoint. And this is also going to help us increasing identification of, rootkits and bootkits. And again, it's reducing the load on those client endpoints because you'll, performing the scans on the backups in a centralized location, and it's going to allow you to have more aggressive scans. Smart protection plans that I mentioned several times. So CPOC, again, is a cyber protection operations center that Acronis operates 3 around the world globally. They operate 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, staffed with real people. These centers look at the threat landscape and send out alerts to the Acronis platform. When these things are being alerted, Acronis Cyber Protect allows you to automatically adjust your customers' protection plans on the basis of those alerts. So what that means is we can have perhaps more frequent backups. Maybe we want to run some deeper AV scans. Maybe we want to enforce some specific patches because there's a certain vulnerability that's been exploited. And then, when things start to go back to a normal state of normality, then protection plans can revert to the way they were prior to those alerts being accepted. So what this allows us to do is have faster reaction time for prevention and avoidance of downtime from possible malware or ransomware incidents, and not to mention even physical incidents. So to provide an example, it's not just the digital threats that have been monitored here, it's also things such as natural weather events, possibly a flood or fire. It might be heading in your geographic location. So what you might want to do is maybe you want to run some backups to the cloud before that weather event hits, because maybe it's going to devastate a particular region. So you could be alerted to possible issues that could impact your customer environment, and this is going to allow us to take action, choose what we want to do, such as maybe run some additional backups or patches and so forth. So we've got fail-safe patching that I spoke about and mentioned earlier. So when you're backing up endpoints before patching, things can happen. And, rollbacks themselves, they take time, they can be slow. So by having an image-based version to actually restore from to the previous state. It's really going to save us a lot of time and resources, and it's going to be a lot faster than a rollback. Now we've got the forensics part, which is quite interesting. So service providers, we might be asked by clients about specific employee, or maybe our HR department might ask us about a specific employee that they might want they might want a detailed forensic backup from their machine. So there's, there is, potential for these events to occur, particularly if there's formal legal investigation. So what you can do is set a backup in what's called forensic mode. And what that will do is it will take a memory dump. It's going to take full hard drive. It's going to do sector bit by bit type. And it's not just the files in the free space, but it's also going to look at something called the slack space. And the slack space is something that the investigators actually look at in detail to put pieces of the puzzle together around, what perhaps has been occurring on that particular machine or across the network. The best example we could use is, perhaps an employee suspecting something's going on. They might start to delete files. They might try to create some executables, hoping they might flood the network, or maybe they want to do something malicious. So this is a differentiator that you can offer to your clients, because if your client needs to have a more compliant or regulatory comfort, they're going to tend to need a bit more of a forensic backup, right, than just a normal backup. So it's just a matter of simply turning this on, and then you're going to be collecting that data. So remember I mentioned the data protection maps. So this is an easy way to visualize our customer data. So when we look at file level backups, did we capture all the things that were necessary? So rather than having to go into the actual backup itself to see, oh geez, have we backed up all of this customer's critical files, this is going to visually show us what we've backed up for a customer and for that particular endpoint. So this allows us to have automatic data classification to track the protection of those important files, so the ones that we want backed up. And then we can also be alerted to if those files haven't been backed up. So this is going to help us reduce risk. It's going to help us make sure that we're backing up the right things, and it's going to make sure that we haven't missed anything. And then we've got the whitelist. There are global and local whitelist. This is pretty important because it actually helps us deliver more accurate heuristics using our artificial intelligence and machine learning that's built into the product. So you can build these manually and increase the detection rate. We can actually have them automatically built as well, so you can do it both ways. One of the things that global whitelisting has a hard time to do is with supporting custom applications that customers might have. So when we're scanning the backups, we're not just scanning with the anti-malware, but we're also scanning it with the whitelist of those unique apps. And we're trying to avoid any false positives that could occur as a result of those unique applications. So this is going to help eliminate, the time consumed from resulting false positives. And it's going to allow us to whitelist those unique applications that's going to may perhaps give us a false positive in the future. What if I was going to define a false positive? I'd say it's when a trusted application gets triggered by a malware technology, and then perhaps access to that application is prevented because it's been quarantined, when in actual fact it's a safe application for use. So here I'll just like to talk about some of the popular use cases, just to reinforce those. So we talked about onboarding new customers and new devices, in that it's actually a pretty expensive process, especially if you're using and installing several different solutions. So you can discover new devices, and you can install the agent remotely, just one agent with Acronis instead of many. Again, this comes with our AI active protection for zero-day ransomware and malware protection. We talked about the forensics investigations with the image-based backups, taking the memory dumps and so forth. And we can have post-malware recovery, so it lowers the risk and it ensures fewer operations, right? So, and then the antivirus scans are centralized to reduce load on the endpoints so that we can recover quickly. And we talked about the data protection map so that we can easily visualize the protection status of our customers' most important data. You can perform the centralized patching. It's not just Microsoft. It includes browsers, common applications. It's going to include all the things that you commonly see on the endpoint, and you can do it. You can run it for all of your customers with one single tool. And then you have the reporting, so you can simplify your customer retention, make it easier to justify value, because you can demonstrate based on the knowledge you've acquired from the reporting, you know, what you're doing for your customer on a monthly basis. We covered the continuous data protection for the real-time protection of data, saving all the changes to critical files immediately, even in between the backups. We covered the CPOC, which is covering the response to emerging threats, and the hard drive monitoring, which we haven't actually touched on because there's actually a lot of things that I haven't touched on, that leverages our AI technology. This actually, it's a pretty cool thing. It provides us the ability to predict when hard drive fails based on its operational behavior. So we've actually built up, we've leveraged our AI to actually build up a knowledge base based on certain drive behaviors. So we've built this up over years of monitoring of our systems. So it's a really cool feature, which I encourage you to take a look at. So just a quick reminder, Acronis Cyber Protect is part of Acronis Cyber Cloud. For those that perhaps aren't aware, Acronis Cyber Cloud includes backup, disaster recovery, file sync and share, Notary Cloud, and our cyber infrastructure. And we will continue to bring new services to market to help our service providers offer more value out to your customers through one streamlined interface. And of course, we integrate with all the most popular RMM and PSA tools. So if you do wish to leverage your investment in something like a ConnectWise or Autotask, or WHMCS if you're a hosting provider, or cPanel or Plesk, then you have the ability to leverage our pre-built integrations which are available for use. So just a quick touch on the licensing. We don't have time to go through this in detail. So Cyber Protect comes in 3 editions: Standard, Advanced, Disaster Recovery, in either a per gigabyte or per device model. Cyber Protect is licensed by the machine or by the endpoint. So it's either a workstation, a server, or a virtual machine. Very simple model. And just a quick reminder that before I hand over to Andrew Lestrange, who's going to be taking through a demonstration of the Cyber Protect features. There are many that I haven't covered in my presentation, just purely because we don't have time. So for those that are not an Acronis Cyber Cloud partner yet, if you sign up to the service today, then any customers you add to your tenant from now until August 1 will not be charged. That's for consumption of backup, disaster recovery, and Cyber Protect. All you need to do is switch your customer into trial mode to take advantage of that. And if you're an existing Acronis Cyber Cloud partner, you can switch on Cyber Protect for any of your customers from now until August 1, and it will be 100% free of charge. So billing for Cyber Protect will commence on August 1. If you'd like to find out more about what's available, then please speak to your Ingram, friendly Ingram team members, which is Daniel or Sean. With that, I'll be handing over to Andrew for the demonstration, and I'll be back to answer any questions as we go through this. Over to you, Andrew. Andrew?
Yep. Can you hear me okay, Dave?
Yes, mate.
I don't appear to be able to share my screen.
I passed the screen share to you. It says now viewing.
There's a poll. We've got to wait for that.
Oh, I see. seem to be stuck on the poll. Okay, I think you're good to go now, Andrew. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, thanks very much for your time. So first things first, once you've selected the appropriate components in the Ingram Marketplace, this is the Acronis portal. Excuse me, the first part is the dashboard, and here we have an overview which has got updates really around cyber protection, really giving a heads up on the protection status, how many machines protected from a backup perspective, as well as from a anti-malware protection, as well as active alerts. As at the moment I've got none, patch installation status. At the disk health status, it won't actually show up on my demonstration. I run a purely virtualized environment. I've only got a couple of machines to play with. This works off smart reports, so it works for physical devices only. As Dave also mentioned, there's a data protection map, as you would expect in a demo environment where not much been updated. This is a sea of green. It was more meaningful, I suppose, when you looked at Dave's presentation. Really, it's going to show you what files you care about, and it's more relevant when you've got machines with lots of disks, particularly with shared drives where different backup schemes are in play. The alerts, nothing there at the moment. Activity, show all the things that we've done on the machine. And then we have the threat feed. So this is straight out from the Acronis operations. And basically it's going to come up with new threats that we've seen. These ones I haven't actually acknowledged yet, but if you click on one of these, it gives you a brief description. You can go into more details, or you can simply go and run whatever the recommended actions are, whether that's load a patch, run a scan, turn a port off, whatever it needs to be. One of the key things about this is that, as Dave mentioned, it's one single agent. So the agent that we're using for backup, it already has this capability to go and do additional malware protection, patching, etc. So all you have to do is really go and enable it from the management portal perspective. So I'm going to pick on this machine here. So this is a Windows 10 machine. I've picked on that one for a reason. So you'll notice there's a whole bunch, if you're familiar with Acronis, there's a whole bunch of additional features here. So one is an HTML5 client or an RDP remote access client. So you just click on that. It'll start up a new, okay, I picked the wrong one. Still timing out from the previous one. Let's try this one. Go. Okay, and then you provide the login and password, and you'll actually get a login remotely. So that's one click. You can use either RDP or HTML5. The other thing that you'll see on here is we have the ability to share a remote connection. So this was something that we brought in for COVID-19. So if you have customers that don't have any VPN connectivity and you want to provide a quick method for them to have access to their remote machine, then for 10 hours, we'll allow you to go and basically hire out us. So using Acronis as a broker, using a tunnel through port 443. At the moment, it's limited to 10 hours. That in the next release, you will be able to change that, but that'll be due by the end of the month. Lastly, if we go into details, one of the things we have down here, because this is a workstation, we have the remote wipe feature. So if it has been stolen, then you can go and restore to factory defaults. This is only available for workstations, so Windows 8 onwards. That said, we can also then go and show you what the difference is when you actually go into the plan. So previously it was called backup, now it's called protect. Let me just revoke this plan so I can go and show you all the various features. Now you can still have as many backup plans as you wish, right? So you can have one, multiple, as many as you like. If you want to go and add a backup plan and you make it now a protection plan, firstly there are some options that we actually added ourselves for remote workers, office workers. When we say third-party antivirus, we mean not using Windows Defender. Right, so these are pre-canned ones which are available. If you want to create your own, you still can in the same way. And now a protection plan has a lot more to it than just backup. So you can still go and change the name here if you wish to. And you see we have the backup. It looks pretty similar to what we had before. So by default, it's entire machine, but we can go disk volumes, files, folders, or system state. We can do that because this is an agent actually on the Windows guest OS. And at the moment, if we're talking Cyber Protect, it has to be a Windows-based agent. We can't do it with agentless backup, say for virtual machines on VMware. The API doesn't allow for that. So we have to be resident on the guest OS. From a billing perspective, it makes no difference. It's just a setup nuance. We can still select whether we want to go cloud storage or local storage, and you can add various locations for local backup, whether it be a network folder or a local folder. The thing that's really different is the continuous data protection. So this runs in addition to the scheduled backup plan that you're going to do here. So I might want to go and do, I don't know, maybe a weekly full, daily incrementals, and then on top of that I can add continuous data protection, and then in the subsection for that I can pick particular applications. So if it's Office documents, I might even have a particular application in mind. Maybe it's Microsoft Project, maybe it's all of these, or I can go and select particular files and folders. Right, that really is up to me, whatever I want to go and do. I could just go and pick all the users if I wanted to. Other than that, this is exactly the same as it's always been. So we would run that particular backup plan whenever it's going to run, and then we would then back up everything under C users as they are updated throughout the day, in addition to the backup recovery point. The other thing that Dave mentioned in the backup options, we have forensic backup. He said looking for it. Can't see if you're looking. There we are, forensic options. Right, so you just go and turn those on. So that's going to take things like data dumps and a full disk backup, not just the active portions. Main thing here being that if somebody deletes a file, it's just dereferenced. So it's not available from the file system, but it's still actually present on the actual disk, assuming you're not using SSDs. So that's pretty much all that's changed for backup. As I said, you can run as many backup plans as you like. If you want to, you can disable backup by just sliding that slider across there. The other plans that we have here, you can only run once on an endpoint. So if I disabled them all, they'd be available the next time I want to go and create a protection plan. So backup, as many as you like. Everything else, it's a one-time offer. So the anti-malware protection, it still contains active protection as the previous version did, and it still has the same options around stopping the process or revert files using cache. So that's real-time protection from malware. We also have the behavior engine. So this is looking, so basically using the AI machine learning techniques, where we've done loads of tests on the stack traces, looking for what typically malware looks like as opposed to standard apps. Just going with signed applications just isn't enough. So the behavioral engine is pretty much on or off, and then you can either stop the process or you can quarantine whatever it's got a problem with. If you do quarantine something and you decide it is okay, it is automatically added to the whitelist. Self-protection, so this is protection from trying to basically nobble us. So it's going to make sure that you can't go and change configuration files, registry entries, anything that you need to change in that regard has to be done via an Acronis signed application. Network folder and server-side protection. This is whether you're, so network folder is if you're mounting a share from another machine. Server-side protection is again exactly the same malware protection, but this time you're acting as a file server, so sharing files out. Crypto mining process, so that's if someone is trying to steal your CPU cycles so that you can go and mine Bitcoin. Real-time protection. It's on smart access by default. Again, you don't have to have this on. You can change what it does, whether it just blocks and notifies. You can change it to on execution. The difference here is if malware tries to self-propagate by copying itself to other locations, then the access is going to catch it. If it's on execution, it's only if it tries to run. Right, so the main thing here about malware is that we're not checking for signatures. The antivirus does that. If it gets through, as it often does, then we're watching behavior. So it is not until it actually does something that we're going to go and check and look at it. And obviously you can have your exclusions here, so effectively a whitelist. And generally we find that's for homegrown applications. The mainstream ones are pretty much taken care of. URL filtering, so we list a bunch of malicious sites that we will stop you from accessing. Main thing here is whether you want to block or whether you actually want to prompt the user before they go ahead. In addition to that, you can also set up other exclusions. So these would be for bona fide sites that maybe you don't want people to go and access. So things like betting sites, maybe even social media, whatever it is. We don't actually provide antivirus, but we do provide management for Windows Defender. So basically the setup here around whether you want to quarantine, when you want to run default settings, exclusions, etc. The vulnerability assessment, this comes in exactly the same part, but it's actually available across all the various editions. And what we offer you the options here is whether we just want to check for Microsoft products or whether we also want to check for third-party products. So third-party products would include things like Adobe, Java, web applications for conferencing, so things like WebEx and Zoom, VPN, that kind of stuff, and it's an ever-expanding list. Secondly, you can schedule when it happens, right? So you can run this daily if you wish. You can do it at a certain time of the day, whatever you need to go and do. And this is a prerequisite for patching, right? So we need to go and see what's actually missing before we can decide what to patch. Next, we have patch management. And again, it's what kind of products do you want to do? Do we just want to do security and critical updates? Do we want to do all updates? Do we want to do third-party products as well? And then there's a schedule for when this runs. So this is automated patching, right? So assuming that we've done a threat assessment, we've come up with some patches that need to be loaded, you can approve or unapprove them. I'll show you how that works in a minute. And then at a predefined time, you would actually go and install these patches. Again, most people would say do it once a day, once a week, possibly once a month, but you can do it more often if you wish. Lastly, pre-update backup. So if we are going to go and do a load of patching, do we want to take a backup first so that we have a recovery point at that particular point in time? So that's just a simple yes or no. The data protection map, so Dave showed you what that was, and there are a bunch of different extensions of particular files. So this is really just going through and finding out what files are really important to you, and there's some exception rules in there as well. And then you'll go and run at a predefined time. Again, you can run that as often as you like, and then it will go and do reporting in the dashboard as to how they are. Once you create that, you'll get the full plan. I'm not going to do that. I already had one available for this, so I'll just go and add that back. So if you had a predefined plan, it was this one here. All you have to do is just do that. Once you've actually run the plan once, you'll get this CyberFit score here, and this is a score based on observations around protection. So the score varies depending on whether you have a valid backup plan, whether you've enabled antivirus, whether you're using a firewall, whether you have a VPN. I don't have the full 850 here because I still am using NT-LAN Manager, and I haven't encrypted the disk because my hardware doesn't support that. But that's basically what's missing for the full 700. The 625, this one here, the reason that's a bit lower is I haven't loaded the VPN on that particular machine yet. As I said, when we want to go and do this, there are standard agents, the way there always were before, so everything is still run from the same agent. You only need one. It's pretty straightforward that way. The other thing we also have is once we have an agent loaded at the endpoint, we have the multiple devices option. So you can pick any of the machines that you currently have. So pick this one here. And then we can go and do a search on the network. So do I want to do it through Active Directory? Do I want to scan the network? Do I want to go and put in some IP addresses? And then what it'll do is it'll actually go out and scan those for you. I'm going to cancel that because I've already done it. And then what it'll offer you is, do you want to go and install the agents on those machines? And if you choose no, not at that particular time, what you'll have is you'll have a list of unmanaged machines like I have here. So I'll tell you what's available and why they, and you know, if you want to, you can go and select them and you can go and install and register them. So we're trying to make it very easy to go and do your discovery and come up with a bunch of systems that is easy to go and roll out and be as low touch as possible. We also have a backup scanning plan. So have a look at the details for this. You can see these are the stream machines, and currently I'm scanning that for malware. So at the moment, this just works in the Acronis Cloud. So if you want to go and add a plan, just hit create. It's always cloud storage, that will change. And then you pick which backups you want to go and scan. So it has to be cloud-based ones. I could pick any one of these, not these ones because they're on the wrong agent type. So I could pick this one here, for instance. And then we could just done. And then if it's encryption, you'll have to go and provide the encryption password, and the schedule is automated. I won't do that because I've already got one going. And that's just going to go and do a pre-scan. If it does find something, then it will make sure that when it does the restore that it is removed. The other thing on the actual device itself, if you do go into restore, so into the recovery, you'll see that the backup is clear of malware. Why? Because the check has already been run. If it wasn't, then there is a checkbox where you can say, I want to go and scan this before I actually go and do the recovery too. Lastly, down here, we have the quarantine. So nothing's been quarantined, and a whitelist. So if there are any trusted files, they would be showing up here. So this is where you can go and add them if you need to. The software management, the vulnerabilities, these are all the ones that are listed. So these are straight from the manufacturer. If you go and have a look, there's a common vulnerability assessment reference to this website here, where you can look at the common vulnerability and exposures, and you can look up all the various details. So it will give you the severity. This is the severity that we get off the website. It will tell you whether there is a patch available. So here we have a bunch for Google Chrome. They're high, and you can go and patch them if you wish to. And this would be a manual patch. If we look at the patches, so there's that patch. You can see it's high, and I can go and see where I'm going to go and get the patch from. There's a license agreement. I can decide whether I want to agree that or not. The other thing is I haven't applied an approval status, so I can approve it or I can decline it. If I sit here and approve a load of them, so I might approve this one, and you can do it just from here, then what will happen is when the patch schedule comes along, it will come here and it'll look for all the ones that are applied to a particular endpoint, and if they are approved, it will go and install them. Otherwise, you can just go and, I can just go and click on it and I can go and manually install it now. As far as reports go, it's pretty much the same as the dashboard. There are a bunch of reports that you can go and use. So what should we do? Is there a patch management summary? So these are the various reports that you can have. And if you go to settings, we can schedule that so that it's actually mailed out in either Excel or PDF or both. So that's about all I had. The only other thing is the agents. As I said before, it's just a single common agent. It's just that it does more than just backup these days. So that's me complete. So let me just hand over to the next presenter. So I'm going to be handing over to Daniel.
I think you're on mute, Dan. Can't hear you, mate. Dan, still got no audio. Someone needs to unmute Dan, if you could, please.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. It looks like I was muted there. We won't take too much time out of your day. Stick around for the Q&A right at the end of my slides. But basically, I'm going to be running through you guys the order process through our marketplace. It's only going to take another 5 minutes of your time. So just please bear with me. Okay, so obviously the Acronis licenses are transacted through our cloud marketplace. To access the cloud marketplace, please log into au.cloud.im as listed on the bar at the top there. Please bookmark this page in the future if you want to access the cloud marketplace. And basically to log in, please use your traditional Ingram login details. There are two different versions of the cloud marketplace. As you can see here, this is the older version. We encourage partners to be placing orders through the new cloud marketplace, as we will eventually discontinue this old platform. As you can see, we have an abundance of Acronis plans here, and it's located under the backup and disaster recovery category. When placing an order through our marketplace, the integration back into the Acronis system is seamless. And with our automated platform, you'll be able to place an order within a few clicks. To access the new cloud marketplace, simply click the control panel. Now, if you know what Acronis product you're after, simply search for the product using the search bar. Or alternatively, if you wish to view the list of all the Acronis plans, simply select the backup and disaster recovery tile. Now you'll see all the backup and disaster recovery tiles or categories we have included in the section here. In this example, I'm going to select the Acronis Backup Cloud Cap Storage subscription. The reason why that is because at the time, our Cyber Cloud Protect SKUs were being updated by our team. Obviously, the order process is exactly the same for all of our Acronis subscriptions. But yeah, let me take you through that order process there quickly. As you can see, this plan offers tier pricing from 50 gigabytes up to 1 terabyte of storage, and giving you the flexibility of yearly and monthly plans, as indicated by the drop-down box below. Our marketplace displays the MSRP, your cost, ex-GST, and the amount of margin you make under each plan. If you wish to go ahead with an order, simply add the subscription to your cart. Now, I'm going to quickly point out the wizard on the left-hand side where it lets you know where you are through the order process. And in this example, we are on step 1. Hit next to proceed. From here, you can either place the order for any of your existing Ingram Cloud customers or place an order for a new customer. In this example, we are placing this order for a new customer. Complete all the fields, including the customer's first name, last name, email address, account information, and so on. Just a quick note here, It is important to include an internal email address, as this is where notifications such as new sales orders from the Ingram Cloud portal will be sent to. Now, this is the last step of the order process where you can review your order before you provision the licenses. You have the option to add your PO and change the customer details from here. As you can see, our payment method was picked up automatically as we are an existing Ingram Cloud reseller. If this is a new account, the option to add your payment method will be shown here. You can also have your customer pay for their services directly. However, we recommend you to be billed for the service as you are the customer's provider. Hit the I agree tick box and hit buy to complete the order. And licenses will be provisioned given all the information is correct within a few minutes. And that's pretty much it. That wraps up the order process. I'll be handing this back to Sean to answer your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody. It was a very informative presentation, and well, I've learned a little bit more myself being on the other side here. We had a couple of questions from the audience, but what I was going to do, there's some that are, a couple of them are similar, but I'll just read out probably the first 3 or 4 that we'd probably like to check with yourself, David, and Andrew. But one of the ones I saw here is, who would you consider to be your main competitors? Is there some unique differentiators that you have?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I'll field that one. Look, every software vendor has its strengths and weaknesses. With Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud, you get a cybersecurity solution, not just bringing together, the best of cybersecurity and data protection, but you've got your backup and disaster recovery, and we have a unique integrated combination of security tools. So right now, there really is no single competitor that you could compare the Acronis platform to. We are unique in this space, so we believe at this point in time.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, mate. There's another one here. What compliance and regulations does Acronis meet, e.g. government, charitable foundations, and companies requiring storage in Australia? So I guess it's based around our storage and where we, it might be in conjunction with the artificial intelligence and that analysis that you do.
So from our perspective, we're all ISO 27001 certified, and the product itself is GDPR compliant. The other thing that we also do is that if there is a particular requirement from a customer where they want a particular data center to be used, or they want a particular certification, so sometimes we come up against this in New Zealand, then we support backup to different cloud repositories. That's all possible. So we can pretty much cover any base there. But generally the questions what we get asked is, what sort of compliance we have for our data centers, what does the product support, and whether the backups remain in country in Australia, and that is the case. They're all based out of our data center in Equinix here in Sydney.
Beautiful. Okay, we've got one here. Where are you getting your patches from to install? How do you ensure patches are coming from the source and not compromised?
They come straight from the vendor. So, for instance, they come from Microsoft.com, and the hash is checked when the download is done. We don't intermediate or third party them or anything like that. You can, if you wish to, set up so that they're cached locally on an endpoint, but the source is always from the manufacturer.
That was that portal you were showing us with the list, and then it auto patches, and then you can approve or deny. Is that the one?
Yep, and it actually states where the patch is coming from.
Yep.
So we don't get man in the middle or anything like that. It's direct to usually the Microsoft site or Adobe or whoever it is.
Okay. There's a couple others that are similar, so what we will do is we'll probably send a question and answer out afterwards as well. But probably this last one, what kind of independent third testing has been done related to your detection and prevention rates for things like antivirus and anti-ransomware? How do you compare against your competitors?
I can share some insight into that one. So host-based intrusion detection systems, or what are they coined HIDS, it's typically a downstream forensic type system. So our software, or the Acronis software, takes care of the protection and hardening of the customer systems by leveraging the patching and monitoring and the other measures that we have that are all integrated. So therefore, the systems actually complement each other. However, Acronis does not replace a forensic system, so to speak. The Acronis Cyber Cloud Cyber Protect Cloud offering is, already a leader in independent test results. We've been heavily tested by many third parties, including anti-malware-test.com, where the Acronis solution was actually recognised as the single only solution to have more than 80% self-protection, to have 80% or more self-protection performance. And we were the only technology to get awarded the highest gold self-protection award. So it means that we really are outperforming our nearest or the nearest several point solutions or tools that might be used in this space.
Excellent. All right, well, I think we'll wrap it up, but thank you everybody for staying a little bit later, and very informative responses there. Thank you, David and Andrew. If anybody would like to reach out further in the future, we will be sending out a follow-up and it will have everybody's contact details. But thank you once again.